Staying open through the pain, whether that's emotional, mental, or physical, doesn't mean pretending that it doesn't hurt. It means trusting that even in our hardest times, we are being reshaped into a state of deeper connection. As Venus moves into Scorpio, it's asking us to feel more deeply, to love more honestly and authentically, even the parts of ourselves and others that we'd rather look away from. And as Mercury enters his descent into the underworld, going from fiery Sagittarius to the reflective Scorpio, we are being asked to slow down and listen. This is the moment where our truth and our stories meet our vulnerability. And as our minds start to unwind these stories, we get to understand what our heart has really been protecting. Venus moved into Scorpio on November 6th and immediately squared off with Pluto. On November 9th, Mercury goes retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius at 6 degrees, eventually moving back into the sign of Scorpio on November 18th. Now, I already did a video about Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Check that out if you haven't already. But today I want to talk about a different aspect of it and how it's coinciding with this Venus in Scorpio and Mercury eventually going back into the sign of Scorpio. Mercury begins this retrograde in Sagittarius, where our minds are outpacing the bodies, right? I talked about that a lot, chasing ideas, inspiration, and meaning, and how, in a lot of ways, that was really helpful because we had just come out of a lot of Scorpio energy and we needed something to look forward to. And as Mercury now goes retrograde, it's asking us to stop broadcasting and start listening again and to re enter the depths of our world, but this time with perspective. Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is testing our beliefs and our stories, and it's asking you to meet those stories with raw, intense truth. Is this really what I believe? How is this serving me? In my last video, Illness as Initiation, I talked about pain and rewriting our stories to pain because in this society, the story is often pain is bad. And my experience through my own pain in many different forms has shown me completely different. Pain is trying to bring us into a state of deeper connection. And in fact, this is something that Scorpio understands. Let's take a look at the chart together and then we'll continue talking. So Venus is in Scorpio, immediately squaring off with Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, and then Mercury is sitting here stationing to go retrograde in Sagittarius. That video, Illness as an Initiation, is probably going to actually be a series because I really love talking about pain and illness and whether that pain, like I said, is emotional, existential. What I'm feeling right now is there's a lot of like collective pain coming through. A lot of pain about the state of the world and also that mirroring our own pain and the changes that we're going through um, personally as well. It's like they're working in tandem here. And that's because we're about to have a massive rebirth of sorts starting next year, right? I talked recently about how Saturn and Neptune going back into Pisces feels like we're being pulled back. Well, at the same time, we now also have Uranus back in Taurus. So Saturn, Neptune, Uranus have moved back into their previous signs. So we are revisiting a lot of old themes to close them out for good. And Mercury retrograde gives us a beautiful time to reflect on this, to refine, to reintegrate what we have previously learned. Like I said, this time with perspective, right? We're moving from speed, Sagittarius, Mercury, into depth again. This is actually what I was thinking about when I decided on my theme for this Mercury retrograde rewire. If you missed that video, I talked about how for Mercury retrogrades, I do a rewire and I pick a theme dependent on what the sign or signs Mercury is going retrograde in. And this time, the theme that's coming up for me is reclaiming rhythm. And there's a few reasons why this is coming up for me, because it's like, one thing about things moving into Sagittarius and then moving back into Scorpio that is asking us to slow down and listen, but also in human design, Mercury retrograde is happening starting in gate 9. Human design is a synthesis of astrology, Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics, I Ching. And this is the I Ching book. And I want to talk about gate 9 or hexagram 9 in the I Ching, which is actually one of my favorite hexagrams in the I Ching. I actually have it tattooed on me, fun fact, and I got it tattooed on me. And 2 years later, I discovered human design. And in human design, gate 9 is my conscious earth, which is something that is necessary for me to ground into in order to shine bright with my sun. So really cool that I was drawn to it intuitively, and this is the kind of intelligence that Mercury takes on when he is retrograde and when he is in Scorpio, meaning that we move from a state of attention to a state of awareness. And that awareness is that right brain mind that is intuitive. And so it may not make sense, like, why was I so drawn to this hexagram that I got tattooed on me? Who does that, Um, but then you understand later what the meaning of that was. With Mercury going through Sagittarius, giving us a little bit of meaning and then dipping back into Scorpio. In that video, I said, can you allow yourself to know that you have a part of the story, but you don't have the full story yet? You may have a little bit of meaning, but you don't really understand it. Can you be okay in the uncertainty of knowing that what is coming up right now is maybe not making sense to the logical mind because it's not meant to? It's meant to be felt and intuited. And we're being asked to strengthen that part of our minds rather than the logical part of our minds that society really likes to encourage. So this hexagram is called the taming power of the small. It says this hexagram means the force of the small, the power of the shadowy that restrains, tames, and impedes. The hexagram presents a configuration of circumstances in which a strong element is temporarily held in leash by a weak element. It is only through gentleness that this can have a successful outcome. This is what I talk about with pain a lot, and I talked about it in my illness as an initiation video, and I'll continue to talk about it because just, when I think of Scorpio energy, a lot of what comes up for me is pain. And how do we transmute that pain into power in our relationships, in our creativity, right? And we'll talk about Venus and Scorpio a little bit more in a little bit. This is happening in gate 9, line 2. So for line 2, it says, he allows himself to be drawn into returning. One would like to press forward, but before going further, one sees from examples that this way is blocked. In such a case, if the effort to push forward is not in harmony with time, a reasonable and resolute man will not expose himself to personal rebuff, so essentially retreat. If the effort to push forward is not in harmony with time, is really interesting to me because in my Saturn Neptune video, we talked about this idea of Chronos and Kairos as two different versions of time. And Chronos being Saturn time and Kairos being more like Neptunian time. And right now in the sky, they're moving together in the sign of Pisces, which is bringing this really interesting juxtaposition where we're being asked to dissolve and build at the same time, hold structures and surrender. And it's something that our minds might not have an easy time understanding how to do that, but I do believe that it is a felt sensation and an intuitive aspect of reclaiming our own personal rhythm that is going to help us be able to do that thing that Saturn and Neptune are asking us to do, to blend Chronos and Kairos. And in my Substack, I will be going further into these themes. So if you want to know more about reclaiming rhythm during this Mercury retrograde rewire, follow me on Substack, and I will be giving practices and prompts about how I'm going to be doing this, because actually I'm going to be walking my talk here. And one of the things that they often say is that Mercury retrograde is not a good time to start launching. And I will be doing that with my next workshop. And I thought about pushing it back a week So my workshop is going to be on December 6th. I, don't have all the details for setting it up and, people signing up yet, because I'm going to do that during Mercury retrograde, because I'm going to walk my talk. But they often say, and yeah, I thought about pushing it back a week so that I could not do it during Mercury retrograde. And I was like, this is where we reclaim our rhythm and we allow the universe to support us rather than to control us. Right? So I'll have more information about that. But interestingly enough, the workshop is called Co-Creating the Cosmos. So I'm going to be teaching a little bit about, or a lot of it actually, about astrology, human design, and how we can use those to co-create with the cosmos, and a little bit of like neuroscience and identity stuff and all these things that can help us actually begin the creative process. This is the card that literally, as I was shuffling, this has come up twice when I was thinking about this video, because I got it and then I was like, oh, let me see if there's anything else. And then this came up again and I was like, okay, this is what we need to do. And also the Five of Swords came up too, but this was a card that kept coming up. And so creativity, harnessing our creativity. And that's what my workshop is going to be about. How do we do that in tandem with the universe and our designs? So more on that later. Subscribe to my email list and my Substack if you're interested about that too. But yeah, more information coming on Substack soon about Mercury retrograde, and how we can work more in tandem with this Kairos and Chronos situation. Now, as we're moving from Mercury retrograde and really reclaiming a sense of truth and unwinding and rewriting stories that have kept us stuck, let's talk about what some of those stories are possibly about with Venus in Scorpio. The themes that are coming up strongly right now are relationships, love, romance, as well as money and pain. Right? As I mentioned, Venus or Scorpio has a lot to do with this transmutation of pain into power. I want to read something from Jonathan Waller about Venus and Scorpio, or Venus and Pluto coming together, because it is very similar, not the same, but it is similar to Venus and Scorpio. And as I mentioned, we do have Venus moving into a square with Pluto as well. So Venus Pluto, he writes, how could you be afraid of the dark, when that is where all pleasure attains its fullness, and in its death arrives? He says this is where the principle of love, beauty, and pleasure meet that of primal instinct, transformation, and the unconscious. This pair is about finding beauty in the animalistic facets of human nature, taking pleasure in the primordial eroticism of being itself, seeing value in the process of reintegrating what has been repressed, rejected, denied, or forbidden. Our shadows, right? This is why Scorpio is so good at this shadow work, because it has the ability to see the power in what is repressed, in what is taboo, in what people don't want to look at. The problem only happens when we start to live there, and the transmutation doesn't occur as easily, right? And we get bogged down from pain. It is the power of love and the love of power. This is an invitation to journey deep into the heart of darkness and to bring about the return of the wild feminine. Venus Pluto helps you understand the innate value of your creative potential, even if it's in its raw and unrefined forms. In chaos, there is fertility. And that quote in itself really beautifully shapes this Scorpio Taurus axis. In chaos, there is fertility. Venus being fertility, Taurus being fertility, and Venus naturally having a harder time in Scorpio because it likes to be in Taurus, right? It's lush, pleasure-filled, easier life. But this axis shows us that in order to have that stability, we have to be willing to go into the chaos. And this full moon in Taurus was actually kind of a reckoning of that in some way, because it was asking us to come back to the body and to face what our bodies had been holding that it could no longer hold. And in doing so, also remember the body exists, and to take form or to take take some pleasure in, you know? Mercury is stationing direct, you guys, or I'm sorry, stationing retrograde. See? And my words are just all over the place. And this is, honestly, I'll just be honest with you guys. I kept recording this video, and I'm always honest with you guys. Because whenever I say honestly, my partner will always be like, "Are you not always honest?" And I'm like, "No, I am." But I just want to really make sure you know I'm being honest at this time. I recorded this video like 5 times. And then I was just like, oh my God, I don't like any of this. And then I tuned into what is the message here, which is creativity in its unrefined and raw form. Venus and Scorpio. So how am I going to embody that? And after that, I hit record, and this is what we got. Okay, so this is what we're doing, and this is an invitation in all of our lives. So in communication, Mercury, looking at the harder or more painful aspects of this and choosing to not look away and to sit with the pain long enough. Now, I plan on doing another illness as initiation video on how to connect or how to reconnect or connect with your pain. So I'll talk about that more there. But ultimately, we often are turning away from the parts that we don't want to see. And we have to have enough courage to look at those parts if we want to transform them and transform the old stories that we have about love, money, and pain itself, so that we can have the courage to love what's real, not just about other people, but about ourselves. You know, right before Venus moved into Scorpio, it was in Libra where it likes to be, but it was opposing Chiron and squaring Jupiter. A lot of painful realizations about love and money might have come up, only for you to see that Libra was just reflecting back Chiron and Aries, the self wounding. And now we're being asked to transform what we learned. How do we transmute this into power and use this retrograde as alchemy to get us there? So this might feel like recently everything feels more intense. Love, pain, communication has been feeling more intense, and that's because of all this Scorpio that's happening in the sky. Mercury retrograde saying we're not going to move forward with this meaning until we revisit the remnants of the underworld that are waiting for us to see it, to claim it. So let's see what, yeah, and this is conflict, you know, and Five of Swords being conflict of the mind. So I think the hardest part about this, which tends to be, you know, in my work, everything I do is very body based. And it's very common and normal for people to come into my space, especially when we love astrology. It's so easy for us to want to understand things. And I think this Mercury retrograde is going to show a lot of us that our creativity and our innate creative potential, and right, not just art, but our innate creative potential to create every moment is often impeded by the desire to understand. And I think that we're going to, if we stay too much in like the understanding, I think we're going to have a lot of conflict in the mind. And this could also actually be external conflict. You know, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's very likely that people are miscommunicating, and or you're not hearing people correctly because we're speaking from more of that unconscious place, and most of the world is horribly unconscious. So when they're speaking from that place, it's going to be difficult for them to understand what they're saying. And then, yeah, obviously, we know all of the Mercury retrograde things, right? It's like tech issues, communication issues, car issues, travel issues. But one of the reasons that I want to launch my workshop during this time, during Mercury retrograde, it'll probably be like in a couple of weeks or something, is because I want to redefine what it means to have a successful workshop. You know, it's like, is it the amount of people who come? Right? It's like, how are we defining that? Oh, if you do a Mercury retrograde workshop, then it's not going to go well because people won't sign up, or people, you know, like what is, you know, it's like, what are we, let's rewire that. Let's rewire what it means to have, because to me, it's like having a successful workshop is more than about how many people show up and how much money you make. You know, it's like how much truth and resonance comes through in that workshop, how much transformation comes through in that workshop, even if there's 5 people in there. Like, are they 5 people who are really interested in this? And can we allow that to matter too? You know, like, let's get out of the understanding of success uh that we have collectively. My mind went offline there. Um, yeah, see, I'm just feeling like a lot of us are trying to understand and make decisions, or maybe we're indecisive. We're feeling like we don't know where the path is supposed to lead us. And it's like, are we even on the right path? Is everything that I'm doing even worth anything? You know, the collective vibe feels kind of heavy recently, and that's okay. You know, pain is not something to judgment. Yeah. So pain is not something to run from. Judgment. I asked, are you on the right path? And it's like, if you are following a path, excuse me, of, you are being called to your higher calling right now. And what is happening right now is a direct result of some consequences of some of your past actions. And we need to be able to have that conversation without moving into blame, right? Like, oh, it's karma. And it's like, well, karma can actually be really good. You know, you can have really great karma. But if things are painful right now, like, how do we say, okay, there are decisions that I made, there are choices that I made in the past that may have led to this. How can I move into alchemizing that pain and sitting with it again, rather than moving into shame and blame? And, oh, I should be doing this, or I should have done this, and I should have done this, and just say, okay, now how can I take responsibility? And this is the higher calling that we're being asked to make, is to own the pain, to be responsible for it, to connect with it deeply, so that we can move forward into our calling. And just one outcome card for us: contemplation. Yeah, this to me is really that reclaiming your rhythm, right? He's being offered a cup, and he's like so deeply in his own process that he's not even looking at the cup. So sometimes this can be like missed opportunities, but honestly, because of the energies right now, it feels like any missed opportunities are not yours to take right now, and maybe they'll come back around another way. But this card is also really indicative of somebody who is taking the journey inward, taking the call inward. Mercury in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio. It's not about, in that video I said, growth for growth's sake is is a cancer cell. It's a tumor. And so, like, we're chasing success and growth, and it's like, well, what if there is deepening right now rather than external growth? What if we're being asked to root deeper so that we can rise into something greater? And how much can we trust that, right? At the very beginning, I mentioned how maybe we're being asked to stay open through the pain, not that it doesn't hurt, but trusting that it is leading us towards something different. So, this is why it's asking us to slow down, but reclaiming rhythm isn't just about slowing down. It's about slowing down enough to get in touch and reconnect with your rhythm and what feels good to you and what you want to say yes to, and what journey you want to go on once Mercury moves direct, which will be, I don't remember. So I will put that here in the video. Mercury's going, November 30th. I'm pretty sure it's going direct. There's a lot of dates. Once again, Mercury's slowing down and my brain is like, what? If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you want to explore these patterns in your own chart, I do offer one-on-one sessions. I also have that co-creating the cosmos coming up soon, which I'm super excited about. I'll talk more about it once Mercury goes retrograde. And also, once again, on my Substack, I'll be delving into Mercury's retrograde and the rewire that I'm doing, reclaiming your rhythm. More there. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.